Welcome back to How I Learned to Sing. To catch you back up on what happened last time without going all the way back to the previous video, I was a horrible singer, no natural ability. I had amazing teachers who helped me learn how to use my voice. And then finally, while in college, an old classmate heard me singing, Fecit potentiam, in brachio suo. It was probably a bit more classically operatic at the time, but his response from hearing me sound like total crap to hearing me sing this classical piece, his exact words were, "What the f-?" And so let's pick up from there. Well, it turns out that the guy who was listening to me, who responded that way, let's call him Malcolm. I have nothing but good things to say about this person, but I've learned over the years from doing this that some people don't like to be put on blast. So let me explain who Malcolm was. So Malcolm, after high school, had gone on to be a musical director for artists like Babyface, Layla Hathaway, and Ledisi. He was only coming back to school to get his degree because he wanted to also learn how to write musical scores for movies and such, and he just wanted to advance his education in a more formal way. But he was an extremely gifted, prodigiously talented artist. Even back when we were in school together, I remember him being asked to tour with professional singers when he was like a teenager and stuff, and even younger than that. So he was like freakishly talented. It came somewhat naturally, even though he worked hard. He was a gifted artist, completely antithetical to my situation. So Malcolm was like, "You sound like a completely different person." And I was like, "Oh man, I've just been training and stuff." He was like, "No, what are you doing? Teach me." I did not want to be anyone's vocal coach because, to be perfectly frank, I didn't want to help anybody. I felt like I'm surrounded by all of you gifted MFers. I'm surrounded by all you gifted people, and this is my edge. This is how I get to compete with you all, by this secret, almost magical vocal knowledge that I have. This is my talent. I'm nerdy and I get to know things. And if I give you what I know, it's gonna hurt me. That was my thinking. I no longer feel that way, obviously, 100 and plus YouTube videos later. But at the time, I was afraid that sharing my knowledge would hurt me. But he was relentless. And he was like, teach me, teach me, teach me. So there are 3 lessons to today's video, since this is how I learned to sing, but I wanna share with you the lessons I learned. So one of the lessons is that I did have some natural ability, not in the conventional way though. So the first thing I learned was that I had an unusually gifted kind of musical ear. Not so much with chords and like perfect pitch or anything like that, but I could hear tone with almost a psychic sense. What I mean is, when I started working with Malcolm, when I finally started doing the lessons with him, I could not only hear what he was doing, but I could almost hear what he was thinking in regards to how he was creating his tone. I could hear his intention. And as such, I was able to communicate with him very clearly as to how to correct it. And so that, combined with how freakishly talented he was, meant that Malcolm grew rapidly. His voice transformed. Now, this is the thing, and I'm kind of rushing through this part to get to the juicier part, I guess, and that is, Malcolm progressed so rapidly and he gave me all the credit, being very magnanimous about it. He gave me all the credit. He was like, "Eric is a fantastic coach." And I was like, well, to be fair, you catch on in an unusually quick, you know how some of the commercials, like in small print, results may vary? I feel like Malcolm's progress is not indicative of like a typical student, So I was like, I'm good, but you had a lot to do with this. But regardless, next thing I know, my phone starts to ring with representatives from Universal Records, Capitol Records, and Warner Brothers Records. So lesson number 2 that I learned from this experience at this time, now I was a senior in college, and suddenly, I was like 19 years old, and suddenly I had major record labels, representatives from major record labels calling my cell phone, and offering me $300 for 30 minutes of work. I was rich, as far as, not really, but a college student, and making $300, $600 an hour? See, and you might say like, how? How? So that's because I kind of entered the industry along the last vestiges of the old industry when they had money to throw at you. Like Napster and the internet hadn't yet like destroyed the industry as we knew it. And so they were throwing money at me. Why am I mentioning this? It's not a brag. It's because I'm explaining why I pushed through and kept coaching people. So I was like, sure, I'll keep doing this, I guess. I wasn't money hungry, but I'll take the money, you know. But but it didn't stay this way. I promise this ends on a happier, like better character note. But I realized through this work what the labels were sending me people who were two types of people. People who were under development. So these are artists who they were like, we see something in you, but you need some training. And also people who had vocal injuries. So this is the thing. This is what started to change my life, was the vocal injury people. So people just wanted to be pop stars, whatever. Like, you want to be famous? Okay. Like, you know, I was neutral about that. Like, I didn't feel moved. I wasn't against it, but I didn't feel particularly moved. But there were several singers, one being a gospel singer who I won't name, but she came to me after having a vocal fold hemorrhage. She was working with a coach who she felt damaged her voice. And she was afraid of even taking lessons again, because she was like, I tried to do the training thing and he hurt my voice. So I began working with her, and I began to start her with some of the breathing exercises that I had learned. We just started with breathing because she was almost afraid to make a peep. And just from the breathing alone, the way her voice blossomed and opened back up, she was so grateful, and it touched my heart. And then I know this might sound crazy, but it was like, oh, I can help people. This feels nice. And so it started to warm my cold, selfish heart. And it felt good to help someone. And she sincerely was just so grateful. And I taught her some of these breathing techniques. I didn't know nearly as much as I know now. But just from what I shared with her, she made a full recovery. We continued to work together, eventually vocalizing and stuff again. But just from learning how to feel more of her body with the breath, learning how to feel the breath. Like, yes, your lungs are in your, are up here in your rib cage and stuff. But when you're fully using your breath, when you're fully using the full capacity of your lungs, due to changes in intrathoracic pressure, the sensation is that of feeling the breath all the way down to your pelvis. Can you literally breathe into your pelvis? No. But one thing we worked on a lot was helping her feel a sensation, a felt sense of the breath coming down to the pelvis. And it transformed her singing. And I realized, wow, this breathing thing is very powerful. I also worked with an artist from Universal Records who was a pop star who had some very major performances coming up, including singing at an NFL game, the national anthem. Her voice was very damaged. So damaged to the point where I said, you just need to go on vocal rest. I don't even want to touch this. I'm still a college student. I don't even have my degree yet. And she was like, if it's not you, I'm going to find someone else who will. So I was like, fine, I'll do it. Again, I taught her how to breathe, and we focused on feeling a full expansion of the rib cage and feeling a sensation of the breath reaching the pelvis. Again, I know it doesn't literally reach your pelvis, but a feeling of the breath coming all the way down to the pelvis. This pop star improved so much that at the New Orleans Jazz Fest, a very big music festival, she's known for like ba-da-ba-ba-da-da-da, like singing like cute, catchy songs and looking great. I believe she was a model before she became a singer. But at this show, she did the some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. She started singing with this big soulful voice. It upped my profile as a vocal coach so much. People were like, how? Because she had never sung like that. She ended up covering songs later by like Patti LaBelle and stuff. And again, it was one of those instances where I was blessed. So this is the thing. I would later discover over the years that not all artists are like this, but my first few artists that I was tasked with training were all so dedicated, disciplined, and hardworking. And in almost every case, the reason why their voices were injured wasn't because they avoided training, but they were training with people who didn't know what the hell they were doing. So all of these people I'm talking about, they had training. They just didn't train with people who knew what they were talking about. So this lesson is the power of breathing. And also I realized that I could affect health. So what I learned, I know this is how I learned to sing, but this kind of validated for me that my experience could be replicated. So scientifically speaking, I was able to replicate these results consistently, and that let me know, okay, this is a solid technique here. You're on to something. Like I said, I would later learn much more about this, but much more nuance and intricacy. But at the time, what I got from it was, okay, adjusting how you breathe is powerful, especially coming from a background of like very mixed voice focus, vocal fold focus technique, which I started with, that was just like, just train your vocal cords and that's it. But now realizing, well, actually, if you work the breath, there's some magic to be found here. So I realized I could hear tones. I realized helping people was awesome. And, and I started to realize, you know, this stuff I'm doing is powerful. And also, I got a little selfish gain myself. Now, I've talked about this in previous videos, but because I was coaching so much, I was also singing. So quite often, artists would say, hey, can you show me how that goes? So I would say, okay, well, baby, give me your number, call you over, make you feel all right, or something like that. And that's how it would go. Just kind of half, let's say, can I just say that? Can we curse a little bit? I was just kind of half-assedly singing. And so it wasn't even like a big super thing, but they would be like, someone saying, should I do, maybe we should take our time? And I would say, how about, maybe we should take our time? And it would be like, oh, okay. What I didn't realize, I was just kind of spitballing, just throwing out ideas. I wasn't trying to do a vocal performance, just super casual, right? But before I knew it, I was being asked to sing background for artists. And then I became a session singer. All of these producers and writers who would be at rehearsals and stuff started asking me, hey, could you start singing for us? And so I began to do a lot of, reference vocals. So I became a session singer, which made me feel like a real singer because it had nothing to do with my appearance or whether or not I could dance or how charming I was or was not. It was socially awkward, but just from my voice. And what's kind of crazy to me, and this is the other thing that I learned from this experience, I kept getting picked. Like I was getting a lot of work doing this. Like I was singing a lot of rap hooks. I was singing reference tracks for people like Usher and all this stuff to be sent to him. Because, you know, in case you don't know what this is, a lot of, most pop artists don't read music. So and most songwriters don't write music. Like, so if they write a song, quote unquote, they typically, you know, do the track or maybe play live instruments and they'll pick a singer, in this case me, to sing how it goes. That way the intended artist can listen to it and decide whether they like it or not. And so I was doing a lot of these reference vocals. Now what's interesting about this is that it got to a point where very often I was getting picked over singers that I knew. Singers who were technically light years ahead of me in terms of range, control, power. But what I found out, I kept getting chosen because I had the ability to connect emotionally. And I had producers and songwriters saying things like, you can bring it to life. I can sell your voice. And I realized another thing I learned was that, oh, it's not just about how high you can sing or how big your voice is or what riffs and runs you can do. It's also about, can you make me feel something? And to this day, I'd say as a very experienced coach at this point, the biggest issue when I'm coaching artists in the studio is that the producer, songwriter, whoever is like, we need more emotion, more emotion. And this is when I started to learn, oh, good singing is acting. And I realized that while I may not be an Oscar-worthy actor, I can kind of act really well through my voice when I need to. And so that was great. And my ability to shift styles was also really appreciated. So I learned that as well. And through this work, wouldn't you know it, one day my cell phone rings again, and I'm being offered my first major label record deal. And this would open up a brand new Pandora's box of highs and lows. So that ends this episode of How I Learned to Sing. But more will be on the way. I promise to try not to wait like another 3 years or so, whatever to spin before the next episode comes out. But you don't have to wait that long because anytime I'm not on YouTube, I'm on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram. I do lower quality videos on my cell phone all the time. You can find me on my cell phone. Yeah, so I'm gonna be on there. I'm now the old person with like the bad pop culture references, but it's pretty great. And the stories back in my day. But Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything's at Eric Arsenault. If you want to take one-on-one voice lessons with me or with one of my associate coaches, go to aapproach.com. I also have home study video stuff you can't find on YouTube or anywhere else that you can get at aapproach.com. My breathing boot camp series is pretty hot these days. Talks all about the magic, vocal strengthening and protective properties of harnessing your breath. And I guess that's it. So until next time,